I think we are engaged in a fight for the soul of our party. I think values and principles and policies actually matter.
Ted Cruz and his running mate Carly Fiorina now both taking on Donald Trump ahead of the crucial Indiana primary. And it's time now for our Sunday group. Syndicated columnist George Will, co-host of The Five, Kimberly Guilfoyle, author of the book Making the Case, GOP strategist Karl Rove, and Fox News political analyst Juan Williams, whose book, We the People, is just out. And I don't have a book. I got nothing to sell today. We ask you for questions for the panel, and we got a bunch, most of them negative, about Cruz picking Carly Fiorina as his running mate at this point in the race. Jay Klein sent this on Facebook, an act of desperation from a dying campaign. Chad tweeted this, desperate move. Who picks a vice president before securing the nomination? Really? Karl, how do you answer Jay and Chad? Are they right, or could the Fiorina move help Cruz?
They're right, and it could help Cruz. I received an email this week from Ted. He said, frankly, Indiana could be the deciding factor. He admitted to me that it was, quote, absolutely pivotal, and if Trump wins Indiana... I got that same email. It was... Wait a minute. You mean it went to more than one person? He said if Trump won Indiana, it could all be over.
Right.
So, look, this is not a strategic move. This was a tactical move. The Acela primary was a night of good night for Donald Trump. And what better way to stop people in Indiana from focusing on that than naming your vice presidential running mate and spending a lot of time in Indiana? And so it was a desperate move, but it may have shut down a certain amount of the coverage of Trump's Acela primary win and spend a little bit more time on the pizzazz of a vice presidential running mate. We've seen this before. Ronald Reagan did this in 1976, desperate to overcome the advantage that Gerald Ford had of the convention, really desperate to make inroads among the 54 uncommitted delegates in the Pennsylvania delegation. Several weeks before the convention, he names Richard Schweiker.
Did it work?
No, it didn't.
All right, Kimberly, let me pick up on you, because it wasn't the only move. You had Cruz naming Fiorina. You had Cruz making the deal that he says wasn't an alliance with Kasich to get him out. Daring or desperate?
Yeah, I think, of course, you have to make some daring attempts if you want to have a campaign of no regrets. I think this is part of his narrative going forward to be able to try to stay in the race. If he does not succeed in Indiana, he can say, I'm going with Carly. This is someone from California. This is jobs, hopefully to motivate women and other suburbans to come out to support him. I think it was the only play that he had. I still think ultimately that he's not going to prevail in Indiana. It won't be enough. It wasn't enough of a ringing endorsement of Pence. Trump outplayed him with the endorsement of Bobby Knight. That was resounding.
We need to point out, let me just say, for people who don't know, because this is the third reference to him, Bobby Knight was the legendary basketball coach of the Indiana Hoosiers college basketball team.
Yes, and then you had Ted Cruz referring to the ring. So there was a number of missteps instead of the hoop, right? So that wasn't exactly a winning moment or comment in the Indiana state. So he's got a tough time going forward. There's some different polls. I know Karl has one that he shows that he does quite well in. But right now, the momentum is with Donald Trump. I think Carly was a nice pick. I don't think she's a game changer.
George, you have made it very clear during this campaign, and you make it clear in your column today, how much you don't like Mr. Trump. But I want to put up a new poll just out this morning from NBC, which shows, and this is pretty dramatic, and I must say, unlike a lot of the other polls, Trump now with a 15-point lead, 49-34 over Cruz in Indiana, with Kasich back at 13. I mean, if it's anything close to that, this race is over, isn't it?
That is important if true. So is the poll from the Center for Indiana Politics, which has Cruz up almost 16 points, 44.8 to 29 for Trump and 13 for Kasich. This was the one-on-one fight that Cruz wanted with Trump, with an asterisk. That is, a lot of people voted early before the so-called pact between Cruz and Kasich. This was supposed to be favorable terrain, but partly because the social issues have played a large part in the Indiana politics. The problem is Indiana politics has been convulsed by social issues, and it may be a burnt-over affair, and people may be a little tired of that. Finally, there's been a common portrayal of Indiana as a prostrate industrial power destroyed by NAFTA and other things. Indiana has the nation's highest percentage of its GDP from manufacturing, of all 50 states. So in a way, under the policies of Mitch Daniels and then Mike Pence that both Cruz and Trump have praised, the state is thriving.
Would you agree? And you, as you say, take your poll that you choose and go with that. But if on Tuesday night Trump wins, over?
Yes. How's that for an answer?
Yeah, but I mean, that's it. Race is over.
It would be like drawing to an inside straight in poker for a guy.
The fight will go on, but I think it will be really with the idea of accumulating delegates for fights on the platform and influence over the vice presidential nomination if Trump wins.
Which raises the question, Juan, if we do end up, as a lot of people have been, news junkies probably hoping, some people perhaps dreading, a Clinton-Trump general election, the insiders say Clinton wins, Trump's negatives among Hispanics, among young people, among women are too high. But the conventional wisdom's been pretty wrong all year.
Yeah, the conventional wisdom was that the Republican voters might change, almost wake up and say, hey, wait, we were having fun with Donald Trump. It's very entertaining, but this is getting serious. Didn't happen. But here's the thing, Chris. The polls have been consistent in terms of Trump versus Clinton. The polls have not varied there. GOP electorate dominated by white males, older males, and the general election voter is far more diverse. So Trump is right now in trouble, as you just said, not only with Latinos, but let's put in the black voters, let's put in women voters, let's put in young voters, millennials, right? So there's just no question there that, I think George Will once talked about this blue wall in terms of the Electoral College. The Electoral College has been consistent just like the polls. What state is Donald Trump going to flip?
Well, wait, you asked that rhetorically, but he
I'm not
said,
being rhetorical. I'm being very real about that.
No, but he says a lot of those industrial, upper Midwest states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin.
Not one. Even if he were to flip Pennsylvania, Virginia, Florida, he still loses. You have got a Democratic built-in advantage in terms of the Electoral College. And Donald Trump is the least effective Republican right now to change that electoral map.
Do you agree with that? I know you're not a big Trump fan, but is there a path to 270 electoral votes for him?
There is, but it's an ugly path. Let's start with this. The favorable, unfavorable, and real clear politics for Donald Trump is 28.4 favorable, 65.4 unfavorable, 37-point deficit.
Her unfavorables
I was about ready to get to that. 38.4 favorable for Hillary Clinton, 54.9 unfavorable, 16.5 deficit. So they're both in bad shape, both of them upside down. That would point toward the only way that you can win for Trump is to make Hillary Clinton worse than he is. And that's going to be difficult because remember, by the time we get to the conventions, July 18th and July 25th, about 80% of the campaign will have been over. And once these opinions are in place, they're difficult to change. One final point. In the latest Wall Street Journal NBC poll, you like that last one that you put up there, Clinton's negatives are 56% negative, 42 very. Trump's are 65 negative, 53 very.
Let me just quickly add in here. So the story,
why should this be different than the last 20 years? All right, quickly.
No, I was just going to quickly add in. So, I mean, Hillary Clinton, with those negatives, you would say, boy, Republicans should be celebrating. But in fact, with Trump in the race, Trump becomes the story, and he attracts he's a lightning rod for that negative opinion.
All right, we need to take a break here.